What is up, y'all? Back again with another edition of the Late Night Waiver Show. Week 10, baby. So let's hop right into it. So I'm just going to skip over the really obvious dudes. Anybody over 40% owned, I will not be talking about. I think that most people who watch these videos are in leagues where these dudes are on rosters. So let's get into it. Drake May is my number one. I think that if you are QB needy, he is a great pickup right now. I mean, he has that rushing upside. He's been consistently throwing for touchdowns. Drake May has been looking good out there, and I think he's only going to get better. So like I said, if you need a quarterback, good pickup, Drake May. Moving on to Ray Davis. I feel like Ray Davis is kind of going to be in a Tyler Algier type role from here on out. Obviously, James Cook is the main running back in that backfield, but it seems like Ray Davis is getting, at least some work each week, and he seems prone to getting into the end zone. So if you are really desperate on running backs, I would definitely recommend picking up Ray Davis. And never wish for injury, but if James Cook does happen to go down, then he is going to be a league winner. On the same note, Trey Benson. So I really don't think Trey Benson's going to be getting much of a role over James Conner, and also even Amari DiMercado was getting some burn last game, and he had that huge run for a touchdown. So who's to say he's not going to get more? But basically, Trey Benson's just a safety blanket. I mean, James Conner has never played a full season in his entire NFL career, so I think that if you're looking for a little bit of depth at running back, then Trey Benson is definitely a good pickup. All right, moving on to QJ, Mr. Quentin Johnston. I was kind of surprised he's only rostered in 33% of leagues. If he is on your waiver wire, you 100% need to pick him up. He is going to be the main deep threat, main big play wide receiver in this Chargers offense, and it seems like Justin Herbert is really ramping up and starting to throw the ball more, and has consistently been throwing for more yards the past few weeks than he was the beginning of the season. So I think that QJ is going to continue to be fantasy relevant throughout the year. Ricky Pearsall, I still think, is a good pickup as well. I mean, obviously Brandon Ayuk is out for the year. I think that his role in this offense is going to continue to ramp up, and he had 5 touches for 77 scrimmage yards last week, so that's pretty solid. Nothing crazy, but I mean, he's bound to get in the end zone soon here. And as a whole, I just think he's a solid player and probably worth a pickup if you are needing some depth at wide receiver. Moving on, Demarcus Robinson. So not going to lie, this one's kind of a desperation play. I mean, likely the only reason he had a huge day was because Puka went out. But at the same time, I do think that Robinson is able to go out there on a week-to-week basis and possibly catch a touchdown. So like, if you are very desperate, I think he's a flexible option most weeks if he has a good matchup. But yeah, for the most part, probably don't need to pick up Demarcus Robinson, but I do think it's someone who is worth mentioning if you are desperate at wide receiver. All right, next we got Taysom Hill. I talked about Taysom last week, and he proceeded to have a big week this week. Like I said last week, you never fucking know with Taysom Hill. He could go out there and do absolutely nothing. He could go out there and rush for a couple touchdowns, but he can kind of be a cheat code at the tight end position when he does have those big games. But yeah, probably not a week-to-week startable asset, although I think matchup dependent. He can be great, and like I said, again, you never really know. Moving on to Mike Gesicki, he had a hell of a week, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. Shout out Mike Gesicki, that was quite the performance. I think that any week that T. Higgins is out, he is an absolute must start. And knowing T. Higgins, he will probably miss a few more games this year. And Eric All Jr., the Bengals rookie tight end, ended up going out for the season last game. So I think that most of the tight end targets are going to be to him. Obviously, Drew Sample and Tanner Hudson sometimes get in there too, but I think it's mainly going to be the Mike Gesicki show for tight end room in Cincinnati. So yeah, if you need a tight end, I would definitely recommend picking up Taysom Hill or Mike Gesicki if you're looking for something a little bit more consistent. Don't expect 100 yards and 2 touchdowns each week, but I do think he's going to be consistently getting a good amount of targets. All right, and then moving on, Sterling Shepard. I think that if you really need a startable wide receiver, like now, he might be a good pickup because he seems to be the wide receiver who's going to get the most targets in this Buccaneers offense with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin out, and especially with Jalen McMillan out. Though I will say, I think that even if Jalen McMillan comes back, Sterling Shepard is going to be the primary target because he proved last night that he deserves to be. But frankly, I think that when Mike Evans comes back, he's really not going to have much of a role in this offense whatsoever. Moving on, Demario Douglas. He had some down weeks, but he was back up to, I believe, 7 targets, which only amounted to 35 yards, I believe. But even so, getting 7 targets is a very important thing to note. I mean, that's a lot of targets, man. So somebody you want to keep your eye on, maybe you want to pick up if you got the room on your bench. Probably isn't going to be startable as of right now, but you never know. You know, that's the thing with rookie quarterbacks. You never know how they're going to progress, how they're going to continue to target people moving forward. So yeah, like I said, somebody to keep your eye on. Okay, let's move on to the spicy picks of the week, baby. Starting with Mike Williams. So if you got room on your bench, you got a good team, you're maybe looking for somebody who can provide some production in the second half of the season, probably want to consider Mike Williams, man. I mean, he's very clearly going to be the wide receiver 2 in the Steelers offense, as he is a far better player than either Calvin Austin or Van Jefferson. And as we all know, Mike Williams has that big play ability. Both Russ and Justin Fields are capable of hucking a pretty nice deep bomb. So I don't know. I think that if you got the room on your bench, he's probably worth a pickup and just stash him for a little bit and see what his role ends up being on the Steelers offense. All right, and then Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. I mean, he hasn't done much. He doesn't get a ton of targets, doesn't get a ton of yardage, but he has scored a touchdown in 4 straight weeks, which is very impressive. I mean, it seems like this wide receiver core is going to be Calvin Ridley and Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. So if you're struggling at wide receiver, he might be a good pickup, but he is very, very touchdown dependent. So he's definitely able to go out there and do absolutely nothing for you at the same time. But yeah, with that is going to do it for the Week 10 waiver wire pickups. That's going to do it for the late night waiver show. Appreciate y'all for hanging out with me, and have a beautiful night.